Okay, we're going.
Hey,
Woohoo! Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Unpoured Perspectives.
I'm Bobby Lavens, or better known as Drams and Drips, and I help run Southern Ontario Sippers.
I'm Joel Backus. Some people know me as Scratch and Scotch, and I also help to run Southern Ontario Sippers.
And my name is Kevin Dondi, and I am owner or part owner of Spread for Us, the first local distillery focused independent bottler in Canada.
Woo-hoo.
Um, why don't you guys talk a little bit about, what brings you to where you're at in your current like whiskey journey?
That's a loaded question. Um, I think Bobby and I had diverging whiskey journeys up until about the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. I won't speak for Bobby, but for myself, I was pretty happy with the selection I was getting at the LCBO. And during that COVID period, a number of my friends and I, we would get together, we would listen to some hip hop, and we'd have some scotch, thus Scratch and Scotch. That's where that came from. As we continued down that path, we decided we wanted to do a professional tasting, reached out to a company, realized how outrageously priced they were, and for what they were getting, what we were going to be gaining from it just wasn't worth it. And that's when a mutual friend introduced us, and we decided we were going to try and create our own tasting event. And that took some doing because it was right in the middle of COVID, but it worked out really well, and we continued just following that sort of model with a number of tweaks. But that's where we're at now.
Sweet.
Yeah, for me, I'm a little bit further along in my journey, probably about 5 or 6 years further along. I was never really one to buy anything from the LCBO. I kind of got into this knowing the right people, especially certain ones now that weren't where they are now, and now they're distributors, bringing in all the stuff that I've liked or I've was a few years behind in Canada, but really popular in the States. So I kind of got into this right at the right time, and then when we started doing SOS, we realized that there was probably some sort of market for what we're doing. Especially when our own friends of our own group decided that we weren't good enough to host anymore. When you bring in Bryce Simpson from Ardbeg, he ruins everything. And now we had to have a host for every single event that we've done. And now we've done 40, I don't know, we're at 41 or 42 events now. And it's a
Jeez.
fun process. So we've done that. And then along our journey, doing barrel picks. I was able to go to Sweden. I've been to the States. Joel and I went to the States last year, and hopefully hopefully that'll come up to Canada eventually at some point. But it's just fun and then making the community of, we were only about 25 people, and now we're, just shy of 700 now, and within 5 years. So, it's quite the journey for both of us in the last 5 years.
Yeah, your group is an incredible place to be. You guys have done such a fantastic job. As someone who also tried to create a whiskey group, uh, I can attest to how difficult it is bringing people together, trying to get focused, trying to make contact. It's you guys have just created, personally, I think, one of the best whiskey groups in Canada. Possibly even one of the best whiskey groups in the world. But I
Wow.
might be biased. I,
Thanks,
I,
Kevin.
I might be biased.
Well,
Well,
I think when we started at the time with COVID, it made it real easy because it's like, well, we can't do nothing else, and we're going to use Zoom anyways. And then we just kind of stuck with that because it's easy, especially when some of our hosts, like you were with us the last couple weekends, when they're on the other side of the world in Italy, can't really get together in person. So, we've had Scotland and we've had Italy, and we've done some in the States. Across Canada, the Yukon, BC, having Zoom as a feature to do this, and then plus, we've taken out all the the unnecessary things of drinking and driving, renting a space. We can save a lot of money and still cram so much into the kits, and hopefully they're enjoyable for everybody.
Oh man, as if you guys if you guys haven't seen these kits, go check out Tabletop Tastings channel. They always run down the kits, and they are top notch.
I would like to say that having that Zoom feature, it actually gives us something that a lot of in-person tastings do not have. We get to see these brilliant minds who are working behind the scenes in their own homes at their most relaxed. I remember one tasting that we had, he had just moved, so he's got boxes all over him, and he's sitting there drinking a beer, and his wife's sitting over there, and he's just chatting with us. And it was a fantastic time because you felt a real connection, like an almost intimacy there.
It was like 2 o'clock in the morning for him too.
It was, yeah. Yeah, so I
That's
mean, I don't think
crazy.
you would ever get something like that from an in-person tasting, an in-person event. Now, they have their place, absolutely. Like the number that we have been to, it's been a fantastic experience, but uh, there is a certain uniqueness to having the Zoom feature for us.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been on a number of tastings, even not with you guys as well. And the Zoom tastings, you can just do them so easily. You don't have to worry about the driving. The scheduling makes everything easier, and you can still like the chat gives you a nice way to like still joke around and have a good time, all that stuff. Totally agree. So for me, I started whiskey in 2015. I went to Ireland, was part of a wedding party, realized that whiskey was more than just Jack Daniels and shooting it at a bar. Uh, and I bought a couple of bottles, and when I brought them back, I began sharing them around. And those first memories of getting people together and having those times, and having people bring bottles, and I could try stuff, and me bringing bottles, and just encouraging that sort of sharing atmosphere was really important for me moving forward. I love that, and it will always be sort of a core memory for me moving forward. So I created the London Area Whiskey Society. Now we are much smaller. It's mostly still just friends. Maybe pre-COVID we were getting about 30 people to a gathering. Now we're trying to build it back up again. But after a while, I started looking at the Scotch industry and our Canadian industry, and I started saying, there are some differences here. Why is Canadian whiskey the way it is, and why is Scotch whiskey the way it is? Why do I not have my local Springbank distillery? This place that I have, feel like such a connection with. Why can I not go and visit my like a Springbank? And why also do we have like a whole bunch of independent bottlers in Scotland, but none that are independently bottling whiskey here? And so I decided to obviously I couldn't create my own distillery, so I went into creating an independent bottler, and we have released one whiskey so far. It was the first Canadian single malt whiskey aged in Amburana or finished in Amburana from Stillwater's distillery.
Yeah, it was a very
And
unique dram.
yeah, yeah. We've definitely had a few comments about that one. It's definitely a divisive dram. You either love it or you hate it. And the people that love it, we've had by 3 and 4 bottles, and people that hate it have just been like, I just can't drink this. And I totally understand. And I think it's very much like part and parcel of the whole experience, right? Like we're never going to, not all everyone is going to like the same thing. There's award-winning whiskeys that people don't like, and there's terrible whiskeys that, or there's whiskeys that people think are terrible that other people really love,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's a special part of it.
Oh yes, for
We're
sure.
also,
Especially when you're doing these events, and you have a room completely divided on like
Hmm.
one solid note and divided on the other side of the note. That's the cool thing about it because you can get so many various opinions about something even just with one bottle.
Yes, you can go from, you know, man, I really hate this, to man, this is like incredibly interesting and unique and nuanced with the same dram from like a single bottle. Like it's so cool. And so just for me finishing up here, we're actually on the verge of releasing our first new whiskey or our second whiskey, first new whiskey, our second whiskey, which is actually going to be a limited run. We're only releasing, I think, 60 bottles, and we're doing a blend of some whiskey that we have aging from Macaloneys and some more rye that has been finished in an Amburana cask, the same Amburana cask that is then also finished in a rum cask. And it's going to be a 98%, 2% blend.
Uh, Earlier on, you were talking about the mash bill a little bit. What was the mash bill on that again?
So the Macaloneys is part malted, part unmalted barley, triple distilled. And the rye is column distilled rye that was again sort of went initially most of its first few years was in bourbon, then transitioned into Amburana for 2 months, and has now been in a Jamaican rum barrel for 4 months.
Very interesting. Bobby, maybe you would know better than I. Who else is doing anything with unmalted barley?
Not too many. Not too
Yeah.
many.
Yeah, there's some science behind that too, right? Because you need the specific enzymes from the malted barley to start the fermentation too, right? Yeah, that's pretty interesting stuff.
So I think so yeah, definitely that. But also they're sort of, I think, trying to do an Irish style whiskey, sort of an Irish pot style, Irish pot still. And Irish pot still is by definition part malted and unmalted barley, and that stems back to taxation because they would
Okay.
only tax malted barley.
Okay, yes. So I was in Ireland a few months ago, and we went and visited the Killowen distillery, and he gave me something. He called it Pogin. Does that sound familiar? It's
P O I, yeah.
Poitin, something like that. So that would be where that stems from. Is that not?
I honestly, I don't have familiarity with that particular spirit.
Yeah, the way they kind of described it to me was like Irish moonshine. Basically, in order to avoid taxation, they were doing something like that to keep the government off their back.
So the Irish word, I think it's pronounced pochine, maybe,
Poaching, yeah.
translates to small pot and refers to a traditional Irish distilled spirit. It's pronounced pochine, yes. Unaged Irish spirit that is the precursor to whiskey. Interesting.
Yeah, apparently in Dublin they have Poaching festival every year.
Oh,
Everybody comes out with their home brew.
nice.
Nice. Yeah, I mean I definitely need to make my way back. I was hoping to make it for my 40th birthday, but COVID happened and that just didn't turn out. And I've never been able to, plan a trip. I was planning to go to Scotland.
You
Never
don't
been to
look a day
Scotland.
over 39.
Yes. I mean, all of this hair is dyed white. It's all, I like it. I like it. It was dyed white.
I mine too.
So, you guys pour a dram?
We did.
All right, what'd you pour?
Go ahead, Joel.
So Holmes Cay, this was one of our first sort of barrel picks that we did. Now, truth be told, I didn't get to try it before. But when Bobby announced that we are gonna have something with our name on it, sort of, I was very excited. So I helped to create that. This is a little homage to Jose Batista. I don't know if the light's picking it up very good, but it says there, swinging a drive, Holmes rum, and honoring that epic bat flip. So that's what
I have
I
a
got.
T-shirt for that black backflip.
Do you?
Yeah, I mean
I'm
that one
old.
is just quickly.
Sorry.
That is such a great bottle, such a great choice. Why'd you choose that rum for
I
port to
haven't
port
had it
tonight?
in a little while, and it felt like the right time to pull it out. It's such a fragrant rum. It's not terribly funky like a lot of other Jamaican rums. It's got some beautiful like caramelly notes to it. But it does still have just enough of that funk to keep it really interesting. Um, and I think that's kind of what we're trying to do here in this
Hmm,
podcast.
true, true, just enough funk. Maybe that's what we should have named the podcast.
There is another connection, but I'll save that for a little bit later.
All right, cool, 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 cool.
I'm going two Brewers Release number 10. Kind of just stumbled across this one, and I'm like, I know they were when I got this, they were in their 20 releases. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And it's cast strength. But this is super good. Like this is
Yeah.
everything you'd want in a Canadian single malt, in my opinion. Yeah,
I
super
mean,
tasty.
that's definitely dating at least your Canadian whiskey journey there.
Um, I think no, probably not because this is 2018. So I mean, had a little bit of experience with Canadian stuff before that,
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
but this is definitely the start of where it got started getting really good was with this bottle. So
That's true. That's true.
I think we've all been down that road where you drink some sort of really bad Canadian stuff and then you gotta stumble across the good stuff.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the statement, or at least I would make the statement that Two Brewers is the original Canadian whiskey where you sort of begin to you can't tell the difference between whether it's Canadian whiskey or Scotch.
Yeah, I think to me, I think they're like one of the top three single malts, if not the top now, with how old they're getting now for sure.
Yeah, no, very,
And that they
very
do
exciting.
four different types of releases too, which makes it really interesting.
Yeah, love Two Brewers. I have a few bottles. Always try and get a sample if I can. If I can't get a bottle, love their stuff. For
When was
me,
that we did the event with them, Bobby? Is it 2 years now?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did. It was just the start of the 30s.
yeah.
Now they're at 47 and 48 or something already. So,
A big shout out to their maple syrup too.
oh yeah, so good.
Oh man, maple syrup. So they had one of their innovative barrels, I think it was, that they put the whiskey in an old maple syrup barrel, and then they sent that barrel back when this barrel was empty back to the maple syrup farm. The maple syrup farm filled the barrel with whiskey again,
So good.
and that maple syrup that came out of that barrel was amazing. It was fantastic.
nice. So I am gonna pour two whiskeys. I haven't poured them yet. So I'm actually gonna do first of all this Stillhead Muscatel, which is sort of gonna be a fresh crack. I've only just undone the foil tonight. This is a first fill hogshead Spanish oak Muscatel 4-year old whiskey. ABV 61.4%. It's a rye.
Oh, cool.
I think
Probably deep, probably
Sev
BC rye.
Severin was looking for some of that, wasn't he?
Maybe. I have a
Uh,
sample that someone gave me, not of that, but of a different one, and it wasn't too bad. But I love Muscatel, so I mean, I'm curious to know what you think of that.
I think it was just tonight on the Discord chat. He was asking if
Mm,
anybody had that.
it's got a
Oh,
lovely color to it.
wow,
It's
that's cool.
dark.
Like
Yeah.
mahogany, some
And
crazy.
then and then because of the Canadian Whisky Awards, which maybe we'll jump into next, or maybe we'll do a little bit of other chat before that. Because of the Canadian Whisky Awards, I tracked down the one of the Macaloneys award winners. So the actual Canadian Whiskey of the Year award went to Macaloneys, and that one was also a Moscatel barrique. That was, I think, shaved, toasted, and recharred. But for me, the Macaloneys whiskey that I was most interested in was their Peat project, smoked sugar kelp infused Peat Portuguese red wine STR barrique. And so I
Sounds like a
believe,
lot going on there.
yeah, yeah. I did a little bit of research before, and I believe what they did was the peat was either infused with the sugar kelp, or they smoked the sugar kelp like on top of the peat, basically while they were drying the barley. I think it was the peat that was, sort of modified by the sugar kelp, not like the whiskey or the barrel. Because obviously you could have smoked the barrel with sugar kelp inside, or you could have infused the whiskey with like a net, sort of like gin. But I don't know how legal that would have been. But in the research, I think what they did was in drying the barley, they used sugar kelp. Anyways, I did have a dram of this the other night, and I enjoyed it.
Man, that's
Uh,
crazy.
well, the Macaloneys bottles, yeah, do play a little bit of a trick on you because they're thick bottles. But yeah, we can compare the color.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so this is more amber, or
Amber.
maybe this is like amber, and this is more like hmm, cedar or something like wood.
Now,
Like
watching your
very light.
nose from a Glencairn, is that your preferred glass?
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that is a whole other podcast. I mean, I have like 15 or 16 different types of glasses. I like to continue trying them all. I think my go-to is something with a short stem. I like a short stem. The Highland glass is nice, but if I could even do like more like one of these, then I prefer this. But I actually have had to use a lot of my glasses recently, so they were in the washing machine because we were doing like blending. We were doing we were creating our blend, and I've had two recent tastings. One of which was the Southern Ontario Sippers Valence and Mallet tasting. So I used a whole bunch of my glasses. Okay, so anyways, let's do a quick touch base on tariffs. Well, first of all, right, as of like yesterday or as of this morning, everybody was still running around with their heads cut off, worrying about tariffs, and how it was going to affect whiskey. And then, it seems like a few hours ago we have secured, a 30-day pause on those tariffs. Now, as part of this, Doug Ford was going to be pulling bourbon from LCBO shelves. And at this moment, I think we still are not 100% sure whether that's going ahead tomorrow or not. But regardless of the politics, because we're not here to talk politics, if we focus on the whiskey, can there be anything good that will come from tariffs on either side?
I guess you could say no, because there won't be any bottles on the shelf, but then you can say yes, because then we can start drinking and searching out more Canadian stuff that we don't know about. So it's kind of a little bit of both.
It is a little bit of both. I certainly need to acknowledge a bias, actually a multiple bias, because first of all, I'm not a massive fan of bourbon. I do have some bourbons, and when I do drink bourbon, it's mostly hazmat. But I've just for me, most bourbon just tastes like 10 inches of wood, and I just can't. I just can't get over it.
I guess I'm the minority here because Joel's not a really big bourbon drinker either.
Yeah, you can speak to the not biased bourbon guys. I I there's my first bias. My second bias is with Spirit for Us. I sort of my business is sort of pushing, local Canadian distilleries, local Canadian whiskeys, anyways. I guess I don't want one business to suffer for the benefit of another, but I do want more Canadian whiskey to be sold in Canada, right? I want Canadians to appreciate Canadian whiskey more, and I think as that happens, I think we're only going to get better and better and better whiskey, and because we're producing it locally, surely it can only get cheaper and cheaper, or at least one can hope.
Yeah, true.
So in this sort of time that could have been, or maybe still could be, quite tough for some people, what are the local brands that people should be looking at?
Well, for you, I mean, you have Paradigm, which they do a great job there. I've been a fan of their stuff since they started. I mean, where we are, we have obviously where Last Straw is because you work with them pretty regularly, and obviously like out west, you have two brewers in the Yukon, Sons of Vancouver, Shelter Point, Macaloneys, as you mentioned already. We have like Hansen, Henge in Alberta. There's Lucky Bastard in Saskatchewan. I don't know of any in Manitoba, but I know there's something. And then even in Ontario, you keep going a little further north, you have North of Seven in
Yes, north
Ottawa,
of seven
which
for
makes some
sure.
pretty cool stuff that I I don't know very many people that actually even know who they are. Obviously, there's Gretzky who's doing some interesting things now. Lot 40, Wisers. And 40 Creek has a big following. I mean, there's tons. You go East Coast. There's Compass.
Yeah, I was
There's
about to
so
say
much.
Compass. Yeah,
Yeah, and there's tons. There's just like so many. Like Wild Spirits. Um, I don't know, I can't even.
Wildlife.
Yeah, yeah, is it Wildlife? I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, wildlife recently won some awards as well. And in Ontario, in Arthur, Ontario, actually, there's a really unique distillery, and they make just a ton of different spirits. They're coming along with their whiskey. They still have like quite young stuff, but they've released some cask strength stuff. They've released some regular stuff, some mash bills. That's Silver Fox Distillery. They have like a whole bunch of liqueurs, and it's really quite a quirky distillery as well. So if you're ever in the area, stop by there as well.
I
Yeah,
followed
Eastern
them on
Culture.
Instagram. They look pretty cool. I haven't
Yeah,
been
you
there
got
yet.
what Guelph too has Sleeman's and Sons too, right? They're
That's
new.
right.
Actually, I've
That's
had a
right.
couple of their single malts and they're pretty tasty.
Right. Dixon's as well.
Yeah, tons.
Dixon's
There's
distilled
so much.
spirits. I think that's well for Kitchener.
Oh yeah. Oh okay. Yeah, I mean, there's stuff everywhere. Yeah, I mean Okanagan spirits.
Oh yeah, of course.
There's so much out west. I mean, you even want to go, you can throw in Carrols. They make some cool rum stuff out east. Yeah, Romero in Alberta, they do rum. I mean, you can get a bit of everything
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, and we're just listing stuff off the top of our heads. I was trying to track all the distilleries down a little while ago, and I think there's more than 50 in Ontario. There's probably 50 in Alberta and BC as well.
Yeah,
So there's a huge number of distilleries across Canada that people can order from, especially if they don't mind paying shipping, or maybe get in with someone else, split the shipping. The whiskey community. This whiskey, the Macaloneys Peat Project, I actually owe to someone on Facebook. Thank you very much, Igor number two. Helped me with this.
That has been one of the real silver linings for I guess not silver lining, that's not the right word. Unintended benefits of creating a community like Southern Ontario Sippers is a lot of people will help each other out with the shipping and things like that. So if you're in a certain area and you're looking to try and get something shipped to you, yeah, like there's bound to be a Southern Ontario Sippers member somewhere around. Might be able to help you out with the shipping and split on a box or something.
Sorry, I just took a first sip of the Stillhead Muscatel,
Took your breath away.
and I mean it did a little bit actually. It did. So first crack, like huge caveat, first crack. So a little bit hot, which I expect that'll die down after it oxidizes a little bit. It was 61.4%. Um, but huge flavor bomb as well. Sort of a little bit like the Gretzky oats. So can just the direction here. But yeah, I really actually I think there's a lot of potential for this bottle, especially after it oxidizes a little bit. Yeah, I have another one from Stillhead. Their BC Rye was actually a Strath pick, and I just love that bottle,
I
which is
think
what made me get this bottle. Yeah, I love that. For me, that was strawberry jam with like a layer of cheddar on top. Just massively loved it. How's your dram coming along?
yeah, it's empty. I'm out. This
Fair.
one's so good. It's like spiced honey, like some apple cider. Uh, very apple forward, like green, red apples. like spiced honey. It's got an amazing spice, and I mean, I found it a touch hot when I first opened it because it's 58%, but it really mellows out, like very nice. I mean, obviously, this being so far back, it's a lot younger than what there is now, but still, this is one of the better ones I've still had.
How's yours going, Joel?
Oh, delicious. Just savoring every moment. As you can see, I don't have a heck of a lot left.
Oh, you didn't get
So,
in on that other one. They went on sale, did you?
I still have one stashed away. It's technically property of Southern Ontario Sippers, but I don't know.
No.
Nice. I have a bottle of that as well, the ITP 2007 Jamaica, but it doesn't have the sticker. So it must have, I don't know how that happened.
There's a few stores that end up going out to afterwards that
Hmm.
we didn't send stickers out for. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I managed to procure it through Facebook somewhere. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that on a recorded podcast, but
Facebook friend.
yes, yes, friend. Uh,
So there is another connection here I was going to mention. So Canadian spirits wouldn't necessarily be where they are today without Jamaica.
okay.
Do you know how?
No, please enlighten
So
me.
Jamaicans would actually come up the coast of America, all the way to Newfoundland, and trade rum for cod.
For fish.
So for fish, for cod.
Okay, cool.
And it's funny because my father-in-law, he's from the East Coast. He's got a relatively thick East Coast accent. My uncle is from Guyana, from the tropics, technically part of the Caribbean. He also has a very thick accent. When we chat with either of these guys, half the time we don't even know what they're saying. However, they were both in Canada or in Ontario for my wedding. They were translating for each other. So my father-in-law would say something, be like, what's going on? And then my uncle would be like, yeah, he said blah, 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 blah. And then vice versa. So they had a very fluent understanding of each other, but nobody else understood them. But I think
Like they speak accent.
there is some funny similarities between some of the accents that spawn from the East Coast and some West Indian accents. So there you go. There's my Canadian connection.
That's a cool story.
I trade rum for fish.
I do like a good cod.
It's true.
So I just sipped the Macaloneys.
Okay, just going to cut it here. Our first time, we accidentally recorded an hour and 40 minutes, which is just a little too long for our first episode. We appreciate everyone taking the time to listen. Please subscribe, comment, and share, and join the conversation. Stay tuned for part 2 of our first episode, where we do a deep dive on the Canadian Whisky Awards. Thanks for tuning in.